Bear Cub was glued to a ceiling. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The rain pounded against the cabin windows like tiny fists desperate to get in. Inside, Lily Morgan huddled beneath a worn quilt, her eyes fixed on the leaking corner of the ceiling, where water collected in an old cooking pot. Each drop echoed through the small space with a hollow ping that matched her heartbeat. 3 days of endless storms had cut off the mountain road to town, leaving her stranded with dwindling supplies and a growing sense of unease. Lily hadn't planned to be here alone. The remote cabin belonged to her late grandfather, a place of childhood summers and warm memories. She had come to sort through his belongings to say a final goodbye to the man who had raised her after her parents' accident. But now, as thunder cracked overhead and the wind howled through the trees, the familiar cabin felt foreign and threatening. A sudden thump against the outer wall made her jump. Lily froze, listening intently over the storm's rage. There it was again. A scraping sound, followed by a strange, high-pitched cry that raised goosebumps along her arms. It wasn't human, nor was it any animal call she recognized. Just the wind, she whispered to herself, pulling the quilt tighter. But even as she spoke, she knew it wasn't true. The cry came again, more desperate this time. Despite her fear, something about the sound tugged at Lily's heart. It was filled with pain, with need. Something was suffering out there in the storm. Before she could reconsider, she found herself moving toward the cabin door, grabbing her grandfather's old flashlight from the hook on the wall. Lily hesitated with her hand on the doorknob. Opening the door meant letting in the storm, facing whatever waited in the darkness. Yet something in that cry had sounded so helpless, so young. With a deep breath, she turned the handle and pushed. The wind nearly ripped the door from her grip. Rain lashed her face as she raised the flashlight, its beam cutting weakly through the downpour. At first, she saw nothing but the violent dance of tree branches and underbrush. Then, as she swept the light along the cabin's outer wall, she spotted movement near the woodpile. There, half buried beneath fallen branches and mud, was a small, trembling form. The beam illuminated 2 frightened eyes reflecting back at her. Not the glowing eyes of a wild predator, but wide, terrified eyes that seemed almost human in their desperation. Lily stepped closer, fighting against the wind. As she neared the creature, her breath caught in her throat. It was a fox kit, its russet fur matted and darkened with mud and blood. One of its back legs was pinned beneath a fallen branch, and something dark, oil or tar, covered most of its small body. The kit let out another cry, weaker than before, its tiny chest heaving with each labored breath. "Oh, God," Lily whispered, kneeling in the mud. The animal was barely more than a baby, perhaps separated from its mother in the storm. As their eyes met, Lily felt something shift inside her, a breaking and rebuilding of something she thought had died with her grandfather. Without further hesitation, she set down the flashlight and carefully lifted the branch. The fox kit didn't move, its strength seemingly spent in the struggle. Its eyes remained fixed on her, filled with fear, but also something else, a desperate hope that transcended the barrier between human and wild. As Lily reached toward the tiny creature, the wind shifted, bringing with it a deeper, more menacing sound from the darkness beyond the cabin's clearing, a growl that rumbled beneath the storm's chaos. In that moment, Lily realized the night held more surprises, and perhaps more dangers than she had imagined. And somehow, the fate of this small, helpless creature had become intertwined with her own. The storm was far from over. And as Lily gently scooped up the trembling kit, she couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected encounter was just the beginning of something much larger than herself. Something that would challenge everything she thought she knew about the wild, about survival, and about the unexpected connections that form in the darkest of times. Lily stumbled back through the doorway, cradling the fox kit against her chest. Water streamed from her hair and clothes, forming puddles on the wooden floor as she kicked the door shut behind her. The tiny creature in her arms barely moved, its breath coming in shallow, rapid pants that worried her. Under the cabin's warm light, she could now see the full extent of its injuries. The back leg wasn't broken as she'd feared, but a deep gash ran along its thigh, crusted with dried blood and dirt. Worse was the sticky substance covering much of its body. Not oil, as she'd first thought, but something thicker, with a chemical smell that burned her nostrils. "What happened to you, little one?" she whispered, moving to the kitchen area. The fox's eyes fluttered, looking up at her with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Something about those eyes, amber with flecks of gold around the pupils, seemed unnaturally intelligent, almost knowing. Lily shook off the strange thought. The stress of the situation was making her imagination run wild. With careful movements, she cleared a space on the counter and lined it with a clean towel. As she laid the kit down, it let out a pitiful whine that tore at her heart. Outside, the growl she'd heard earlier came again, closer this time, mixing with a crash of thunder that shook the cabin's foundations. "Don't worry about that," she told the fox, trying to keep her voice steady. "We're safe in here." But even as she spoke, Lily glanced nervously at the windows. Something was out there, something drawn to the cabin, perhaps by the fox kit's scent. She moved quickly to each window, drawing the curtains tight before returning to her patient. The substance coating the kit's fur refused to come off with just water. Lily rummaged through her grandfather's cabinets, finding an old bottle of cooking oil. "This might help," she murmured, pouring some onto a soft cloth. As she worked the oil into the sticky patches, her mind raced. This wasn't some natural accident. The substance was clearly man-made, some kind of industrial adhesive that had no business being on a wild animal. An hour passed as Lily meticulously cleaned the fox, speaking softly to it the entire time. The storm continued its assault on the cabin, but inside, a fragile calm had settled. The kit eventually stopped trembling, its eyes following Lily's every movement with an unsettling intensity. When she finally cleaned the wound on its leg, Lily discovered something that made her blood run cold. Embedded in the fox's skin, nearly hidden by fur, was a small metal device no larger than a grain of rice. A tracking chip. "Someone did this to you deliberately," she whispered, anger rising in her chest. "Who would—" A sudden knock at the door cut her off. Lily froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. Nobody should be up here. The road was impassable, and her nearest neighbor was miles away. The fox kit's ears flattened against its head, a low, warning rumble vibrating in its throat. The knocking came again, more insistent. A voice followed, barely audible over the storm. "Hello? Is anyone there? Please, I need help." Lily hesitated, her instincts screaming caution. The fox's reaction troubled her. Animals often sensed things humans couldn't. Still, she couldn't ignore someone in distress during this storm. Grabbing her grandfather's old hunting knife from a drawer, she tucked it into her back pocket and moved slowly toward the door. "Who's there?" she called, standing to the side of the door rather than directly in front of it. "My name's Gabriel Chen," came the reply. "My research vehicle got stuck half a mile back. I saw your lights. Please, I'm soaked through and it's freezing out here." "Research vehicle?" Lily's eyes darted to the fox kit, still watching her intently from the counter. The tracking chip suddenly made more sense, but it didn't explain the adhesive or the injury. Against her better judgment, Lily cracked the door open, chain still latched. Through the gap, she saw a man in his 30s, water streaming from his dark hair and down his face. He wore what had once been professional attire, khakis, and a button-down shirt now plastered to his skin, and a laminated ID card hanging from a lanyard around his neck. Behind him, the storm raged, unabated. "Thank you," he breathed, relief evident in his voice. "I thought I might have to spend the night in my car." "What kind of research are you doing up here?" Lily asked, not moving to undo the chain. Something flickered across the man's face. Surprise, perhaps, or wariness. "Wildlife monitoring for the university. We're tracking migration patterns of several species." His eyes moved past her, scanning what he could see of the cabin's interior. "I don't suppose you have a radio or a satellite phone. My cell doesn't have service." Lily's hand moved closer to the knife in her back pocket. There was something off about his story, about the timing of his arrival so soon after she'd found the fox. "No communications," she said. "The storm knocked out the power too. I'm using the generator." Lightning flashed, illuminating the clearing behind Gabriel. For a split second, Lily thought she saw another figure standing at the tree line, a larger silhouette, motionless and watching. When her vision cleared, there was nothing there. "Listen," Gabriel said, his tone changing subtly. "I really need to get inside. It's not safe out here, and not just because of the weather." He lowered his voice. "There's been a situation at our research station. Something got out. Something dangerous." A crash from inside the cabin made them both jump. Lily turned to see the fox kit had knocked over a mug on the counter, sending ceramic shards across the floor. When she looked back, Gabriel's expression had hardened, his friendly demeanor evaporating. "You have it, don't you?" he said flatly, no longer asking to come in but demanding. "That's not what you think it is. You need to hand it over before someone gets hurt." Lily's fingers closed around the knife handle. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied, even as her mind raced to make sense of the situation. "There's nothing here except me." Gabriel's laugh was cold and nothing like his earlier tone. "I'm tracking it, Miss Morgan," she supplied automatically, immediately regretting giving him her name. "Miss Morgan, that thing you think is a fox? It's carrying a highly contagious pathogen. It escaped from our containment facility during transport. If you've been touching it..." He let the implication hang in the air. Fear gripped Lily's chest, but something didn't add up. The fox's behavior, though unusual, didn't suggest illness. And the adhesive? Why would a research animal be covered in industrial glue? Her eyes dropped to Gabriel's ID card, trying to make out the logo or institution name, but it was turned away from her. "Show me proper identification," she demanded. "If you're with a university or government agency, you'll have credentials." Gabriel's expression darkened. He reached into his pocket, but instead of producing a wallet or badge, he pulled out a small black device with 2 metal prongs. "Last chance to do this the easy way," he warned. Behind Lily, the fox kit let out a sound unlike anything she'd ever heard. Not animal, not human, but something in between. A sound of warning. In that moment, her decision was made. She slammed the door shut just as Gabriel lunged forward. The taser hit the wooden door with a crack of electricity, and Lily fumbled with the deadbolt, securing it just as Gabriel's weight slammed against the other side. "You don't understand what you're protecting," he shouted through the door. "It's worth millions. They'll find you both." Lily backed away, knife now drawn. The fox kit was standing on the counter, its posture alert despite its injuries. Its eyes met hers, and in that moment, an understanding passed between them. Whatever this animal was, whatever Gabriel and his associates wanted it for, she wouldn't turn it over to them. Moving quickly, she gathered essential supplies: food, water, first aid kit, her grandfather's old revolver from the locked cabinet above the refrigerator. She had no idea where she would go in this storm, but staying here was no longer an option. Gabriel would find a way in, or worse, his colleagues would arrive with more than tasers. As she stuffed items into a backpack, Lily noticed the fox watching her preparations. Then, to her astonishment, it jumped down from the counter and limped to the back door of the cabin, looking back at her expectantly. "You want to show me something?" she whispered, hardly believing what she was seeing. The fox made that strange sound again, then scratched at the door. Outside the front of the cabin, she could hear Gabriel retreating, his footsteps crunching on the gravel path, likely going back for reinforcements or tools to break in. With a deep breath, Lily shouldered her pack and picked up the fox, which settled into her arms with surprising calm. "Okay, little one," she murmured. "I hope you know where we're going, because I sure don't." She eased open the back door, peering into the darkness beyond. The rain had slightly lessened, though the wind still whipped through the trees with frightening force. Before stepping out, Lily looked down at the creature in her arms, her unexpected ally in what was quickly becoming the most dangerous night of her life. What she saw in those amber eyes was impossible. A gleam of intelligence, of calculation, of gratitude that went far beyond animal instinct. This was no ordinary fox, and as she stepped into the storm with it held close to her heart, Lily knew with absolute certainty that her life would never be the same again. Behind them, the cabin's front door splintered with a crash. Ahead lay only darkness, storm, and wilderness. But somehow, cradling this mysterious creature against her chest, Lily felt strangely unafraid. Whatever secrets the fox held, whatever dangers pursued them, they were in this together now. And somewhere deep in the forest, something ancient and powerful was stirring, drawn by the presence of the kit, moving through the rain-soaked trees with purpose. Watching, waiting, coming closer with each passing minute. The forest floor had turned to mud that sucked at Lily's boots with each step. Rain continued to fall, though less violently than before, creating a constant dripping symphony from the branches overhead. She had no clear destination, only the desperate need to put distance between herself and the cabin, between Gabriel and the creature she now protected. The fox kit had insisted on being put down shortly after they'd entered the woods, moving with surprising agility despite its injured leg. It trotted ahead of her, stopping occasionally to ensure she followed, leading her deeper into the forest on a path only it seemed to know. Twice now, it had changed direction sharply, as if sensing danger Lily couldn't perceive. "Where are you taking me?" she whispered, more to herself than the animal. Her flashlight beam cut a feeble swath through the darkness, casting long, shifting shadows among the trees. A twig snapped somewhere behind them. Lily froze, extinguishing her light with a click. The fox froze too, its ears swiveling toward the sound. Heart pounding, Lily strained to hear beyond the patter of rain and the rush of wind through leaves. There it was again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Someone was following them, trying to move quietly but betrayed by the sodden forest floor. Gabriel had found their trail. The fox tugged at her pant leg with gentle teeth, urging her forward with an almost human insistence. Lily complied, moving as quietly as possible, letting her eyes adjust to the near total darkness. Ahead, the ground sloped downward toward what sounded like running water. A stream or small river, swollen with rain. As they descended the slope, Lily's foot caught on an exposed root. She fell forward with a startled cry, tumbling down the muddy incline. Pain shot through her ankle as she rolled, finally coming to a stop at the bottom in a heap of wet leaves and debris. The fox was instantly at her side, nosing her face with concerned whimpers. "I'm okay," she gasped, though her ankle throbbed fiercely when she tried to stand. Not broken, but badly sprained. She wouldn't be outrunning anyone now. The sound of the water was louder here, and as Lily's eyes adjusted further, she could make out the churning surface of a rain-swollen creek, perhaps 15 feet across. On the other side, barely visible through the gloom, was what appeared to be a rock outcropping with a dark opening at its base, a small cave or overhang. "Is that where we're heading?" she asked the fox, feeling slightly ridiculous for expecting an answer. To her shock, the animal bobbed its head in what could only be described as a nod. Before Lily could process this, light flickered through the trees behind them. Another flashlight beam sweeping back and forth. Gabriel was closing in. With a surge of desperate energy, she hauled herself to her feet, wincing at the pain in her ankle. The creek looked dangerous, its waters moving fast with storm runoff. But the alternative was worse. The fox darted ahead, leaping gracefully from stone to stone across the narrowest part of the creek. Lily followed more cautiously, using fallen branches for support. The water surged around the stepping stones, cold enough to numb her feet when it splashed over her boots. Halfway across, she heard a shout. "Stop right there!" Gabriel stood at the top of the slope, his flashlight beam pinning her like a spotlight. In his other hand glinted something metallic, not the taser this time, but the unmistakable silhouette of a gun. "That animal is property of Next Gen Biologics," he called over the rush of water. "Government contracts protect our research subjects. You're interfering with classified work, Miss Morgan." Lily said nothing, continuing carefully across the creek. 3 more stones to go. The fox had already reached the other side and was pacing anxiously, making that strange vocalizing sound again. "I'm authorized to use whatever force necessary to retrieve it," Gabriel continued, starting down the slope. "It's not what you think it is. That thing was created in a lab." His words hit Lily like a physical blow. Created? Not just tracked or studied, but manufactured somehow. She glanced at the fox, remembering those 2 intelligent eyes, the unnatural understanding it had shown. What exactly was she risking her life to protect? Her hesitation cost her. As she stepped to the next stone, her injured ankle gave way. Lily tumbled sideways into the rushing water with a splash and a cry. The creek wasn't deep, but the current was strong, immediately pulling her downstream. Water filled her ears and nose as she fought to keep her head above the surface, gasping and choking. Through her panic, she heard a splash behind her. Gabriel had entered the water in pursuit. Ahead, the fox was running along the bank, keeping pace with her as she was swept downstream. Then, to her astonishment, it let out a howl. Not the sound of a fox at all, but something deeper, more resonant, that seemed to vibrate through the forest itself. The howl was answered almost immediately. From somewhere nearby came an echoing call, then another and another, a chorus of voices from the darkness. The fox howled again, and this time shadows detached themselves from the trees on both sides of the creek. Lily caught glimpses of movement, of gleaming eyes reflecting her dropped flashlight's beam as it tumbled alongside her in the water. Gabriel saw them too. "No," she heard him gasp. "That's impossible. They're all accounted for." Lily managed to grab an overhanging branch, arresting her progress downstream. Her legs still dangled in the current, but she could breathe again, could see what was unfolding around her. The shadows had formed now, foxes, at least a dozen of them, surrounding Gabriel as he stood frozen in the middle of the creek. But these were no ordinary foxes. They were larger, their fur patterns strange and mottled in the faint light, their movements too coordinated, too deliberate. As Lily watched in stunned disbelief, the kit she had rescued limped to the edge of the water directly across from her, its amber eyes locked on hers. Then, before her very eyes, it began to change. Its form shimmered, elongated, the proportions shifting in a way that defied everything Lily knew about biology. In seconds, where the fox had stood was now crouched a small, pale child of indeterminate gender, naked and shivering, with a mass of russet hair and those same amber eyes with gold flecks. The child reached out a hand toward Lily. "Help me," it said in a voice both young and impossibly ancient. "Please. They made us, but we are more than what they intended." Reality seemed to waver around Lily, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The other foxes, were they all like this one? Human and animal both? Gabriel was backing away now, his gun trained on the nearest of the fox creatures. "Stay back!" he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. "You're property of NextGen. This is a violation of containment protocols." One of the larger foxes stepped forward, its fur silver-tipped and scarred. As Gabriel swung his gun toward it, the animal's form blurred and changed, expanding, reshaping until a tall, rangy man with silver-streaked hair stood in its place, eyes burning with a wild light. "We belong to no one," the man growled, his voice carrying easily over the sound of the water. "And you will not take another of our young." Gabriel fired, the gun's report echoing through the forest. But the silver-haired man was no longer there. The fox form had returned in an instant, darting aside with unnatural speed. The other foxes surged forward in a coordinated attack, some changing form mid-leap into half-human, half-animal shapes that defied description. Lily closed her eyes, unable to watch the violence that followed. Gabriel's screams were mercifully brief, cut off by a series of splashes and a final, gurgling cry. When she dared to look again, Gabriel was gone. Only his flashlight remained, rolling gently in an eddy at the creek's edge, its beam illuminating nothing but swirling water and night. The child fox stood where it had before, hand still extended. Behind it, the others waited, some in fox form, some in their strange half-state, some fully human, but with an otherworldly wildness to their features. They were watching her, Lily realized, waiting for her decision. Her arms trembled with the effort of holding onto the branch, her body numb from the cold water. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the child spoke again. "They hunt us, cage us, try to use what we are," it said softly. "But this forest is ours. It has always been ours. You helped me when you didn't have to. Now, let us help you." Lily looked into those amber eyes, animal and human and something else entirely, and made her choice. She let go of the branch and pushed herself toward the outstretched hand. As her fingers met the child's, a strange warmth flooded through her frozen limbs. The creek's roar seemed to fade, the forest's darkness to lighten. The last thing Lily saw before unconsciousness claimed her was the circle of fox people moving closer, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. The last thing she felt was being lifted by strong arms, carried deeper into a forest that suddenly seemed less like wilderness and more like home. And as she drifted into darkness, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that this night, this encounter, was part of something far more ancient and profound than she could possibly understand. A story being written not just in the storm-lashed forest, but in the very fabric of what humans thought they knew about the world and their place in it. Consciousness returned to Lily in fragments. The crackling of a fire, the scent of earth and herbs, soft voices speaking in a language that seemed to shift between recognizable words and something else entirely. A cascade of sounds, more like music than speech. Her eyelids felt impossibly heavy as she fought to open them, her body aching from the ordeal in the creek. When she finally managed to look around, Lily found herself in a space unlike anything she'd ever seen. At first glance, it appeared to be a cave, its walls rough stone illuminated by the warm glow of several small fires. But as her vision cleared, she realized the cave was actually the hollow interior of what must have been an enormous, ancient tree. The walls were living wood, their surfaces carved with intricate patterns that seemed to move in the flickering light. Roots, as thick as her body, formed natural archways to smaller chambers beyond, while high above, the trunk opened to a small patch of night sky where the storm clouds had finally parted to reveal stars. She lay on a bed of soft moss and sweet-smelling leaves, covered with what felt like fur but somehow wasn't quite. Perhaps woven hair or some textile she couldn't identify. Her wet clothes had been removed and replaced with a simple garment of surprisingly soft material that felt like neither cotton nor wool, but something in between. "You're awake." The voice came from her right, soft and slightly musical. Lily turned to see the child fox sitting cross-legged beside her. In human form, the child appeared to be about 8 years old, with that same russet hair falling in wild tangles around a face that was neither definitively male nor female, but beautiful in its androgyny. The amber eyes watched her with that unsettling intelligence. "Who are you?" Lily asked, her voice hoarse from swallowing creek water. "What are you?" The child tilted its head in a gesture so fox-like that Lily had to remind herself she was speaking to a being capable of taking human form. "My name is difficult in your tongue. You may call me Russet for my color." The child touched its hair, then pointed to Lily's leg. "We healed your ankle and removed the tracking device they put in me." Lily glanced down, surprised to find her injured ankle no longer throbbing. She flexed it experimentally. Not even a twinge of pain remained. "How?" "We have ways," Russet said simply. "Old knowledge. Before the men in white coats took me, I was learning to be a healer." A soft footfall alerted Lily to another presence. A woman stepped into the light, tall and lithe with streaks of silver in her dark hair. Her eyes were the same amber as Russet's, but with more gold, giving them an almost luminous quality in the firelight. She wore a simple tunic of the same strange material as Lily's new garment, decorated with small objects, feathers, shells, polished stones, that clacked softly as she moved. "I am Nova," the woman said, her voice deeper than Lily expected, resonant with authority. "Mother of this kit, leader of this skulk." She gestured around, and Lily noticed for the first time that the chamber was filled with people, some sitting in the shadows, some moving quietly between the smaller rooms, all watching her with varying degrees of wariness and curiosity. "Skulk," Lily repeated. "That's what a group of foxes is called." Nova's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "We keep some traditions. Other terms we have discarded." "Like what?" Lily asked, struggling to sit up. Russet helped her, small hands surprisingly strong. "Like human and animal," the child said. "These divisions are your kind's invention, not ours." Lily looked between them, struggling to make sense of what she was hearing. "But you can change forms. You're neither one thing nor the other. How is that possible?" Nova knelt beside the bed, her movements fluid and graceful in a way that no ordinary human could match. "We are Vulpini sapiens. That is what they called us in their laboratories, their reports. the name they gave to their creation. Her expression darkened. But we are older than their science, much older. I don't understand, Lily said. Gabriel said you were created in a lab. A low growl rumbled through the chamber, several of the watching figures shifting restlessly at the mention of Gabriel's name. Nova raised a hand, and they settled. Your kind always believes it creates when it merely discovers, she said. The men of Next Gen did not make us. They found us, captured some of our young ones who were careless, studied our DNA, tried to replicate it, control it. She looked at Russet with a softness that was painfully maternal. My child was born free in this forest. They took Russet 3 moons ago during a hunt. We have been searching ever since. Russet leaned against Nova, seeking comfort. They put us in cages, me and the others. They did tests, put needles in us, made us change over and over until it hurt. Lily's heart twisted at the child's words. Others? There were more of you at this facility. Nova nodded grimly. 5 kits taken. Russet is the 4th we have recovered. 1 remains captive. But how did you find Russet? Lily asked. And what was that adhesive covering him, her? She hesitated, unsure of how to refer to the child. All of us and none, Russet supplied with a small smile. But they is simplest in your language. Nova's expression hardened. The adhesive was part of their latest experiment. They are trying to prevent the change, to fix our people in one form or the other, to make us controllable. She spat the last word like something poisonous. When Russet escaped, they were in fox form with this substance covering their fur. It was meant to harden, to trap them in animal shape forever. The implications made Lily feel ill. That's torture. Yes, Nova agreed simply. And the man you encountered was not their scientist, but their hunter. He tracks and recaptures any who escape. He has done this before. Lily remembered Gabriel's cold confidence, his immediate recognition of what Russet was. He seemed practiced, she agreed, but he was surprised to see the rest of you. He said something about you all being accounted for. A silver-haired man emerged from the shadows, the same one who had confronted Gabriel at the creek, Lily realized. His face bore a jagged scar from temple to jaw, his eyes the darkest amber of any she'd seen, nearly brown. Because they do not know we exist, he said, his voice rough as bark. Not our true numbers. They believe they created a handful of us in their laboratories over the past decade. They do not know we have lived in these forests for countless generations, since before their cities, before their history. Nova nodded. This is Oak, my brother, our Skulk's protector. He speaks truth. We have hidden ourselves for centuries, watching your kind spread across the land, learning your languages, sometimes walking among you when necessary, but always returning to the wild. Lily's mind reeled with the implications. An entire species, or whatever they were, living alongside humanity undetected for generations. But how? Surely someone would have noticed, would have documented. Who would believe them? Oak interrupted with a harsh laugh. A wanderer claiming to have seen people who transform into foxes. They would be dismissed as mad, or drunk, or attention-seeking. And we are careful. We are few, and we are cautious. Russet tugged at Lily's sleeve. Until recently, they said solemnly, the men in white coats found one of us, old and sick, alone in the human world. They took him to their hospital, did tests, discovered what he was, and then they came looking for more of us. Nova continued the story. For 3 years they have hunted us, captured some, tried to duplicate what we are through their science. They succeeded, in a way, created new ones like Us, but... She hesitated, clearly disturbed. Wrong, broken inside, without the balance we maintain. Created new ones? Lily felt a chill, despite the warmth of the fire. You mean they made more of you? Artificially? Oak made a disgusted sound. Abominations. Unable to hold either form properly. Minds fractured between human thought and animal instinct. His voice dropped. We have had to end the suffering of two such creatures who escaped and found their way to us. They want our secret, Nova said quietly. The key to perfect transformation. Something in our DNA, our brain structure, they cannot replicate. Something that allows us to be wholly fox, wholly human, and always ourselves regardless of our skin. Lily tried to absorb all this information, her thoughts spinning. Outside, she could hear the storm had resumed, rain pattering against leaves. But here in the great tree hollow, everything was warm and still. Despite the strangeness of her situation, she felt no fear of these people, only a growing sense of outrage at what had been done to them, especially the children. The tracking device, she said suddenly, remembering. If they removed it from Russet, won't Gabriel's people know? Won't they come looking? The gathered Vulpine exchanged glances. It was Oak who answered, his scarred face grim in the firelight. The device is being carried far from here by one of our fastest runners. By dawn, it will be 50 miles north, leading them away from our sanctuary. But the cabin, Lily pressed. My grandfather's cabin, they know I was there. They'll find my ID, my vehicle registration. They'll know who I am. Nova's expression was sympathetic but unyielding. Yes, you have become involved in our struggle now. There's no going back to your former life, not immediately. They will hunt you as they hunt us. The reality of her situation hit Lily with the force of a physical blow. Everything she knew, her apartment in the city, her job at the library, her few friends, all of it was effectively gone, at least for now. Because she had helped a suffering creature in the storm, her entire existence had been upended. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. Russet made a soft, distressed sound and placed a small hand on hers. You saved me, they said simply. Now we will protect you. A new voice spoke from the entrance to the chamber. A woman's voice, but with an otherworldly timbre that made the hairs on Lily's arms rise. If she is worthy of such protection. The Vulpine parted as a figure entered the space. She was ancient, her face a map of wrinkles, her hair a cascade of white that reached nearly to the floor. Unlike the others who seemed to blend human and fox characteristics subtly even in their human forms, this woman's features were markedly vulpine. Her nose elongated, her ears slightly pointed, her thin-lipped mouth curved in what reminded Lily of a fox's facial structure. She moved with the halting steps of extreme age, supported by a staff of twisted wood. Elder, Nova said, bowing her head respectfully. This is Lily Morgan. She saved Russet from the hunter at great personal risk. The old woman's eyes fixed on Lily, eyes like liquid gold with vertical pupils more feline than canine. So I have heard. And now our sanctuary is compromised, our location potentially revealed, and we have a human in our midst. She tapped her staff on the ground. The council must consider what to do. Oak stepped forward. With respect, Elder Wren, there is no time for council deliberations. Next gen will be organizing a larger search by morning. We should be preparing to move the skulk to the secondary den. Elder Wren hissed softly, the sound startlingly animal. We have lived in this great oak for 17 human generations, Oak of the Scarred Face. I was born in this very chamber. I do not abandon our ancestral home because of one hunter. There will be more hunters, Nova said gently. Many more, and they have technologies we cannot fight, infrared sensors, drones, tranquilizer guns. We lost 3 to such methods last season. The elder fixed Nova with those unnerving golden eyes. And what would you have us do? Run forever? Hide in smaller and smaller territories as the human world expands? There are barely 60 of us left in these mountains. Our numbers dwindle with each generation. Then we fight, Oak growled. And die, Wren snapped, like the others who tried to stand against human weapons. Lily cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention. Excuse me, but maybe there's another way. The elder turned those predators' eyes on her, and Lily fought the urge to shrink back. You have been among us for less than an hour, human, and already you presume to advise us on our survival? Russet squeezed Lily's hand encouragingly. Let her speak, elder. She knows the human world in ways we do not. After a moment of tension, Wren nodded curtly. Speak, then, human. What is this other way you imagine? Lily took a deep breath. You've been thinking in terms of physical confrontation or hiding, but the real battle isn't in the forest. It's in the human world of laws and public opinion. What NextGen is doing, experimenting on sentient beings, kidnapping children, it's illegal, it's horrific. If people knew, they would hunt us all, Oak interrupted. Capture us for more experiments. Or worse, fear us as monsters. Not necessarily, Lily countered. Look at how protected endangered species are. Imagine if the world knew about an intelligent species living secretly alongside humanity for centuries. Yes, some would react with fear, but others would fight to protect you. There would be legal safeguards, conservation efforts. We would be curiosities, Wren said bitterly. Specimens, locked in reserves, studied, never free. It's already happening, Lily pointed out gently. NextGen knows about you. Others will follow. The secret is already out. The question is who controls the narrative. She looked at Nova. You said they took 5 children. 4 have been rescued. There's still one in that facility, suffering experiments, confined in a cage. Running and hiding won't save them. A heavy silence fell over the gathering. Russet's small fingers tightened around Lily's, their amber eyes wide with hope and fear intermingled. She speaks of Ember, they whispered, my nestmate, my litterborn. Nova's face was drawn with pain. Russet's twin. We have tried 3 times to infiltrate the facility. Lost 2 of our best warriors in the attempt. Where is this place? Lily asked. This NextGen building? 30 miles east, Oak replied. Built into the mountain, heavy security, electric fences, armed guards, cameras everywhere. Lily nodded slowly, an idea forming. My grandfather wasn't just a cabin owner. He was a journalist, an investigative reporter. He exposed corporate corruption, government cover-ups. His notes, his contacts, they're all in the cabin. The cabin you can no longer safely visit, Wren pointed out. Not alone, no, Lily agreed, but with help. She looked around at the gathered Vulpini, seeing their unique abilities in a new light. I need to understand more about NextGen. What they're really doing, who's funding them, what their weaknesses are. With that information and my grandfather's connections, we might be able to expose them legally. Get the facility shut down, free Ember, and create enough public pressure that you'd be protected rather than hunted. Oak scoffed. Pretty words, human, naive dreams. But Nova was watching Lily with a calculating expression. Perhaps not. Our kind has survived this long by adapting, by understanding the changing human world. Perhaps it is time for a new adaptation. The elder thumped her staff again, harder this time. This is too important for hasty decisions. The council will convene." She fixed Lily with those unnerving eyes. "Until then, the human remains here, under guard. She has helped one of our kits, which earns her safety, but not trust. Not yet." With that pronouncement, the elder turned and shuffled back toward one of the root archways, several of the older Volpinae following. The tension in the chamber gradually dissipated as the others returned to their activities, though Lily noticed several remained watching her from the shadows. Nova stood, smoothing her tunic. "Rest now, Lily Morgan. Regain your strength. The council's deliberations may take until morning." As Nova turned to leave, Lily called after her. "The transformation, changing between forms, how do you do it? Is it painful?" Nova paused, considering the question. "It is like slipping between rooms in a house you know well. Both rooms are yours, both comfortable in different ways. The passing through the doorway takes but a moment, a shiver of adjustment." Her eyes took on a distant quality. "We teach our kits to change by encouraging them to feel the joy of each form. The human hands that can create. The fox's nose that can detect a mouse beneath 3 feet of snow. Body and mind must align in purpose." "What Next Gen is doing," Lily said quietly. "Forcing the change, preventing it. It's like trapping you in one room forever, or forcing you to live in the doorway." Nova's eyes widened slightly at the analogy. "Yes," she said. "Exactly so." She studied Lily with new interest. "Perhaps you understand us better than I thought, human." After Nova left, Russet remained, curled beside Lily's moss bed like a watchful companion. "They won't hurt you," they assured her. "Not when you helped me." "What will they decide, do you think?" Lily asked. Russet's small face grew serious beyond their years. "Our people are divided. The elders wish to remain hidden, as we always have. The younger ones," they gestured toward where Oak had stood, "they believe we must find new ways to survive. The world is changing too fast for the old methods." "And what do you believe?" Lily asked gently. Russet was quiet for a long moment, their amber eyes reflecting the firelight. "I believe in both past and future," they said finally. "I believe in the wisdom of my ancestors and the courage to find new paths." They looked up at Lily with sudden intensity. "I believe you were meant to find me in the storm." A chill ran down Lily's spine that had nothing to do with her damp clothes or recent ordeal. "What do you mean?" Russet touched a small pendant hanging around their neck, a piece of polished amber with what looked like a leaf or feather suspended inside it. "Our people have stories. Prophecies, you might call them. One speaks of a time when the veil between worlds would thin, when foxkind and humankind would need to forge a new understanding, or both would suffer." They traced the amber's smooth surface with a small finger. "It speaks of a human who saves a kit during the great storm, who walks the path between worlds, whose heart understands both natures." Lily stared at the child, unsure how to respond to such a statement. Part of her wanted to dismiss it as mythology, as the desperate hope of a child in a frightening situation. But after everything she'd seen tonight, who was she to judge what was possible? "I'm just a librarian," she said finally. "I cataloged books in a university library before coming to clear out my grandfather's cabin. I'm not special." Russet's smile was somehow both childlike and ancient. "None who are part of prophecy ever believe themselves special, Lily Morgan. That is why they are chosen." Before Lily could respond, a commotion erupted from one of the outer chambers. Voices called out in alarm, footsteps pounded on the wooden floors, and Oak burst back into the main chamber, his face taut with urgency. Scouts report multiple vehicles approaching the forest edge, he announced. Military grade with search equipment. They've found us sooner than expected. Nova appeared behind him, already shedding her tunic, preparing to shift forms. How many? At least 6 vehicles, 24 humans, maybe more, armed. The elder's voice cut through the rising panic, suddenly strong and commanding. Evacuation protocol. Second sanctuary. No debates, no delays. She fixed her golden eyes on Lily. It seems your trial comes sooner than expected, human. Your choices in the next hour will determine whether our people consider you friend or enemy forever. As the Vulpini erupted into coordinated activity around her, Lily struggled to her feet, still weak but determined. Russet pressed close to her side, their small form trembling slightly. "I'm scared," they admitted in a whisper only Lily could hear. "But I still believe you're the one from the prophecy." Looking down at the child's trusting face, at these extraordinary people preparing to flee their ancestral home because humans had decided to exploit their very existence, Lily felt something solidify within her. A certainty, a purpose that transcended her ordinary life and cautious nature. "I won't let them take you again," she promised Russet. "Any of you." Oak approached, carrying what Lily recognized as her backpack, somehow recovered from the creek. "Time to prove those words, human," he said, handing it to her. "Nova says we bring you with us. I say we leave you for the hunters as a distraction." "My brother has little faith in humans," Nova said, joining them. She had stripped down to a simple shift, easier to remove when transformation became necessary. "But I see something in you, Lily Morgan, something worth trusting." She held out a hand. "Will you come with us? Leave behind your world to help save ours. The path will be dangerous, and there is no certainty of return." Outside, in the storm-lashed forest, lights flashed between the trees. Approaching flashlights, searchlights mounted on vehicles. Time was running out. In moments, armed men would surround this ancient tree, would violate this sacred space with their weapons and technology, would capture or kill these remarkable beings who had lived in secret harmony with the natural world for centuries. Russet's small hand slipped into Lily's. Oak watched with suspicious eyes. Nova waited, hand extended, for Lily's decision. In that moment, Lily understood that she stood at a crossroads not just in her own life, but in a much larger story, one that had been unfolding in secret for generations and was now racing toward a critical junction. What happened next would depend, at least in part, on what she chose to do. She thought of her grandfather, who had dedicated his life to exposing hidden truths, to fighting for justice for the voiceless. She thought of Ember, still captive in a next-gen laboratory, subjected to cruel experiments. She thought of Gabriel's cold eyes as he had pursued them through the forest, seeing Russet as property rather than a child. And she made her choice. "Yes," Lily said, taking Nova's hand. "I'll help you." Relief washed over Nova's face as Oak gave a reluctant nod of acknowledgement. Around them, the Vulpini were already evacuating, some shifting to fox form to carry smaller items in their mouths, others remaining human to handle larger supplies. Elder Wren was being helped through one of the root tunnels by 2 younger women, her ancient face set with determination. "This way," Nova urged, leading Lily toward a narrow opening in the tree's interior that she hadn't noticed before. "There are tunnels beneath the great oak, reaching deep into the mountain. We can escape underground." Russet kept close to Lily's side as they moved deeper into the tree's hidden passages. The sounds of the approaching next-gen forces grew fainter, replaced by the whispers and shuffling of the Vulpini evacuation. The tunnels were surprisingly well lit by some kind of bioluminescent fungi growing along the walls, casting everything in a soft blue glow. "They'll find the tree empty," Oak said from behind them. "But they'll track us eventually." "Not if we split up," Nova replied. "The plan is already in motion. Half the skulk heads north, creating obvious trails. The rest of us go to the mountain sanctuary." As they reached a large underground chamber where the tunnels branched in multiple directions, Elder Wren was waiting, seated on a stone that looked almost like a throne. The chamber was a natural cave, its ceiling laced with tree roots that hung down like ancient tapestries. "The human comes with my group," the elder announced, surprising everyone. Her golden eyes fixed on Lily. "I wish to observe her myself." Oak started to protest, but Nova silenced him with a look. "As you wish, Elder." Lily stepped forward, still holding Russet's hand. "I won't let you down." Elder Wren's expression remained inscrutable. "That remains to be seen." She gestured to a young man nearby. "Bring the seeing pool." The man hurried to a natural depression in the rock floor filled with clear water. Elder Wren hobbled over and sprinkled something from a pouch at her waist into the water, which immediately began to glow with the same blue luminescence as the fungi. "Before we leave," she said, "you should understand what truly faces us, human, what Next Gen really seeks." She beckoned Lily closer. "Look." Lily approached the pool cautiously. As she gazed into the glowing water, images began to form. Not reflections, but scenes playing out like a film. She saw a sterile laboratory, scientists in white coats, glass enclosures containing fox kits with unnatural markings. One enclosure held a small russet-colored fox with familiar amber eyes. Russet's twin, Ember, she realized. "That is their facility," Wren said quietly. "Watch." The scene changed to show a larger containment area where adult subjects, failed experiments, Lily realized with horror, paced in forms caught between human and fox, their bodies misshapen, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. Some were crying out in pain, others sat rocking back and forth in corners, lost in their suffering. "They cannot achieve the harmony we have evolved over millennia," Nova explained, her voice tight with emotion. "So they create these poor creatures trapped between worlds." The water rippled again, showing a conference room where men and women in expensive suits watched footage of the Vulpini transformations. One man, older, with steel-gray hair and cold eyes, spoke to the others, pointing at data projected on a screen. Though there was no sound, Lily could read some of the projected text: military applications and covert operatives. "They seek to weaponize our gift," Oak growled, "create soldiers who can transform at will." Another image formed: surgical theaters, DNA sequences, brain scans, and finally, most disturbing of all, human test subjects being injected with serums, their bodies contorting in agony as they underwent partial, failed transformations. "Oh my God," Lily whispered. "They're not just experimenting on your people. They're trying to turn humans into us," Elder Wren finished for her, "without understanding that we are not merely shapeshifters. We are balance embodied, nature and civilization in harmony. Our dual form is not just physical but spiritual. These poor creatures they create have no such balance. They are abominations suffering needlessly." The water darkened, then cleared to show Ember again, now being forced to transform repeatedly under observation, small sensors attached to the kit's body. Despite the silence of the vision, Lily could almost hear the child's pain. Russet made a soft, heartbroken sound beside her. "My litterborn," they whispered, "my other self." Lily straightened, a cold clarity filling her. "We need to stop them, not just run and hide, stop them completely." Elder Wren's eyes narrowed. And how would you propose to do that, human? We are fewer than 60. They have armies, governments, wealth. Information, Lily said firmly. Evidence. My grandfather always said the right information in the right hands can topple empires. She pointed at the pool. Can you record these visions somehow? Create evidence we can share? The elder exchanged glances with Nova, who stepped forward. The seeing pool shows truth, but creates no permanent images. However, she added, her eyes lighting with sudden understanding, your human devices could capture what happens in the real facility. Exactly, Lily nodded. We need proof of what they're doing. Proof that would horrify any decent person. Proof that would shut them down legally and turn public opinion firmly against human experimentation. Oak scoffed. And who would help us obtain such proof? Who would believe it? Lily thought for a moment, then reached for her recovered backpack. Digging inside, she pulled out her grandfather's old leather journal, miraculously still intact despite the creek waters. My grandfather had contacts, journalists, lawyers, even government oversight officials. People who specialized in exposing corporate crimes. She flipped through the water-damaged pages, finding a list of names and contact information. And I have an idea. 3 weeks later, a nondescript delivery van pulled up to the service entrance of the Next-Gen Biologics Mountain facility. 2 figures in maintenance uniforms stepped out, faces partially obscured by caps. The taller one approached the security checkpoint, handing over paperwork. HVAC maintenance, Lily said, disguising her voice slightly. Got a work order for the East Wing Environmental Systems. The guard barely glanced at the documents before waving them through. Oak, nearly unrecognizable in human clothing with his hair cut short and his scarred face partially covered by a medical mask, followed silently, pushing a tool cart. As they entered the facility, Lily fought to keep her expression neutral despite her pounding heart. The plan had taken weeks to prepare. Mapping the facility through Nova's memories of her previous rescue attempts, creating false credentials using contacts from her grandfather's journal, and preparing the special equipment hidden in their tool. Section B7, she murmured to Oak as they walked down a sterile corridor. That's where they're keeping Ember according to the building plans. Oak nodded slightly, his eyes constantly scanning for cameras and security personnel. They had chosen their timing carefully. Shift change for the guards, most of the scientists at a weekly briefing. Still, the risk was enormous. They reached an elevator that required keycard access. Lily swiped the card they had painstakingly duplicated from information provided by a sympathetic janitor, one of several facility employees Nova had quietly approached in human form over the past weeks, feeling out potential allies among the lower-level staff who might not know the true nature of Next-Gen's work. The elevator doors opened. Once inside, Lily quickly pried open a panel and attached a small device to the control system, technology provided by one of her grandfather's former sources, a hacker who owed him a favor. 4 minutes until security feed loop initiates, she told Oak. Then we'll be invisible to cameras between here and B7. Oak's only response was a tense nod. His hatred of being inside this human facility was palpable, but his determination to rescue his niece's twin was stronger. The elevator descended to the lower levels where the most sensitive research was conducted. When the doors opened, they pushed their cart into a hallway that looked more like a high-security prison than a research facility. Reinforced doors with small observation windows, key-coded locks, and warning signs about biohazards and restricted access. Lily checked her watch. Feed loop active, we have 20 minutes. They moved quickly now, Lily consulting a small map while Oak pushed the cart. At the end of the hallway they found what they were looking for, A heavy door marked Juvenile Subjects, Authorized Personnel Only. Lily's hands trembled slightly as she used the key card and entered the access code provided by their inside source. The lock disengaged with a soft click, and they slipped inside. The room beyond was clinically bright, lined with glass enclosures. Most empty, but one at the far end contained a small russet-colored fox huddled in the corner of its sterile habitat. The fox's ears perked up as they entered, its amber eyes widening with recognition or fear, perhaps both. "Ember," Oak breathed, moving toward the enclosure. Lily quickly set to work on the lock system while Oak retrieved several items from the hidden compartment in their tool cart: a specialized camera, data collection devices, and most importantly, a signal jammer that would buy them extra time if discovered. As Lily worked, she spoke softly to the Fox Kid. "Ember, we're friends of Russet. We've come to take you home." The fox's ears twitched at the mention of its twin, amber eyes watching their every move with desperate hope. While Oak began systematically photographing and collecting evidence from the room's computer terminal and research notes, Lily finally defeated the enclosure's locking mechanism. The door slid open with a soft hiss. She approached carefully, hands open. "We need to hurry, but I won't force you. You have to trust us." The Fox Kid hesitated only briefly before darting forward into Lily's arms, trembling violently but making no sound. Lily could feel every rib in the small body, evidence of the kit's suffering and neglect. "I've got you," she murmured. "You're safe now." Oak appeared at her side, his collection work done. "Time to go. I have what we need." They had nearly reached the door when an alarm suddenly blared. Not the security breach alarm they had feared, but a medical emergency alert. Lights flashed in the hallway beyond. "Change of plan," Lily said quickly. "We use the confusion." They stepped into the hallway to find staff running toward another section, paying them little attention in the chaos. Following the flow of traffic at a distance, they learned a test subject in another area had suffered a catastrophic reaction to treatment. "Their rush for results makes them careless," Oak muttered darkly. "How many have died in their pursuit of our secret? They used the emergency to make their way to a service exit. Ember hidden in a special compartment built into the tool cart." As they loaded their equipment back into the van, Lily felt a fierce triumph. Not only had they rescued Ember, but they had gathered damning evidence of NextGen's illegal human experimentation. Evidence that would soon be in the hands of federal investigators, thanks to her grandfather's connections. The van pulled away from the facility without incident, heading down the mountain road toward the rendezvous point where Nova and others waited. In the passenger seat, Oak finally relaxed slightly, glancing back at the hidden compartment where Ember rested. "You did well, human," he said, the closest thing to approval Lily had heard from him. Perhaps there is something to Russet's prophecy after all. Lily kept her eyes on the road, but allowed herself a small smile. "Let's just get Ember to safety. Then we'll worry about prophecies." 1 month later, Lily stood on the outskirts of a small clearing deep in the national forest. The evening sun filtered through autumn leaves, casting golden light on a gathering unlike any other in modern history. Seated in a rough semicircle were representatives from 3 groups. The Vulpini Council led by Elder Wren, a select group of human officials including a federal prosecutor and an indigenous tribal leader, and between them, a small team of environmental rights lawyers and scientific ethicists. This unprecedented meeting was the culmination of weeks of careful negotiations following the NextGen scandal that had rocked the scientific community. The evidence Lily and Oak had gathered had proven more damning than they could have imagined, revealing not just animal cruelty and unauthorized human experimentation, but connections to military black projects and illegal genetic manipulation that violated numerous international treaties. The federal prosecutor was speaking, her tone formal but tinged with genuine respect, which is why the Justice Department is prepared to offer the protections outlined in this agreement. Classified status under environmental and indigenous sovereignty laws, a protected territory within the national forest, and most importantly, legal recognition of the Vulpini as an autonomous indigenous population with rights of privacy and self-governance. Elder Wren, looking regal despite her age, tapped her staff on the ground. And the humans who violated our children, who created abominations from our genetic material? The next-gen executives and lead scientists are facing multiple federal charges, the prosecutor replied. The facility has been permanently shut down, all research materials confiscated. Those unfortunate beings created through their experiments are receiving humane care, while our medical teams determine if their conditions can be improved. Nova, sitting beside the elder, leaned forward. And the secret of our existence? How will that be contained now that government officials know of us? The tribal leader answered this question. Your people's privacy will be protected under the same statutes that protect sacred sites and cultural practices of recognized tribes. Only those in this clearing today know the full truth. To the wider world, the next-gen scandal is about illegal experimentation, not about your specific nature. Lily, standing slightly apart from the gathering, watched with a mixture of pride and wonder. In just over a month, everything had changed. Ember had been reunited with Russet and was slowly recovering from the trauma of captivity. The Vulpini had cautiously agreed to this unprecedented alliance rather than retreat further into hiding. And Lily had found a new purpose, a new family of sorts. She would serve as liaison between the Vulpini and the human world, using her grandfather's cabin, now officially registered as a cultural research station, as a base for her work. As the meeting concluded with the formal signing of documents, Russet broke away from the Vulpini group and ran to Lily's side. The child had grown noticeably in the past month, their russet hair now longer, their amber eyes brighter with renewed hope. It happened just as the prophecy said, they whispered excitedly, a new understanding between our kinds beginning with a rescue in the storm. Lily smiled, placing a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. Maybe so. Or maybe we just did what was right and that's enough. Nova approached, Ember shyly following behind her. The twins were identical in human form, though Ember remained thinner, more hesitant after their ordeal. We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid, Lily Morgan, Nova said solemnly. Lily shook her head. There's no debt between friends, between family. Oak joined them, his scarred face solemn but no longer hostile. The elder wishes to speak with you privately before we depart. Curious, Lily followed him to where Elder Wren waited at the edge of the clearing, gazing into the forest depths. For several moments the ancient woman said nothing, simply studying Lily with those unnerving golden eyes. Long ago, she finally said, her voice soft but clear, when I was younger than Russet is now, my grandmother told me that someday a human would walk between worlds and change the course of our people's fate. She reached into a pouch at her waist and withdrew a small object, an amber pendant identical to the one Russet wore. This was to be given to that human when they appeared. She held out the pendant, its polished surface catching the evening light. Within the amber was suspended not a leaf or feather, as Lily had first thought when seeing Russet's, but a perfect, miniature impression of a fox paw print. I do not know if you are truly the one from that old prophecy, Wren continued, as Lily hesitantly accepted the gift. But I know that you risked everything to save one of our children, and in doing so may have saved us all. that deserves recognition among our kind. Lily stared at the pendant, feeling its warmth against her palm. I don't know what to say. Say that you will continue to walk between our worlds, the elder replied. Be the bridge that helps both survive what is coming. What is coming? Lily asked. Elder Wren's eyes seemed to look beyond her, beyond the forest itself. Change, always change. The human world expands, technology advances, the wild places shrink. We have survived by adapting for centuries, but adaptation is not enough anymore. Now we need understanding, connection. Her gaze returned to Lily. We need you. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the trees, Lily slipped the pendant over her head, feeling its weight settle against her chest like a promise, a responsibility, a gift. On the other side of the clearing, Russet and Ember had shifted to fox form and were playing in the fallen leaves, their russet fur bright against the autumn colors, their movements full of the wild joy that was their birthright. Nova watched them with tears in her eyes, while Oak stood guard nearby, his posture relaxed for the first time since Lily had met him. The human officials were packing up their documents, preparing to return to their world of concrete and politics, carrying with them the beginning of a new chapter in history, one that few would ever know about, but that would change everything for the beings in this clearing. Lily touched the amber pendant and made a silent vow to protect this newfound harmony, to honor the trust placed in her, to be worthy of the bridge she had become between two worlds that had always been entwined but had forgotten how to see each other. As if in response to her thoughts, a warm breeze swept through the clearing, carrying with it the scent of earth and leaves and coming snow. The fox kits paused in their play, noses lifted to catch the changing air. The humans glanced up, sensing something they couldn't quite identify, and in that perfect moment, balanced between day and night, between human and wild, between what had been and what might be, Lily understood what the Vulpini had always known, that the true magic of this world lay not in transformation or prophecy, but in the seamless connection between all living things, a connection most humans had forgotten, but could, perhaps, learn again. Elder Wren nodded once, as if hearing Lily's thoughts, her ancient eyes reflecting the last golden light of day. And so it begins, she whispered, as darkness fell and the first stars appeared in the velvet sky above the forest that was, once again, a sanctuary.